An ordinary man becomes entangled in a deadly syndicate after discovering a mysterious flash drive, forcing him to risk everything to survive. As betrayal, fear, and secrets close in, he must fight not only for his life, but for the truth that could destroy them all. The rain that evening was merciless, hammering the city as though it wanted to wash away its secrets. My umbrella had given up halfway home, bending uselessly in the wind until I tossed it into a trash can, resigned to arriving at my apartment soaked to the bone. I trudged up the stairs, my shoes squeaking on the old wood, and by the time I reached my door, my jacket clung to me like a second skin. I wanted nothing more than to collapse into bed, but something stopped me. Across the narrow courtyard, in the building directly opposite mine, a light flickered. Not the regular kind of flicker from a bad bulb. It was erratic, almost like a signal. I squinted through the rain street's glass, trying to make sense of it. And that's when I saw her. She was pacing, back and forth, her silhouette restless against the pale yellow glow of her lamp. Every so often she would stop, clutch her head as if pressing her palms against some invisible pain, then continue her nervous stride. I should have looked away. Neighbors are neighbors, not entertainment. But something about the sharpness of her movements, the tension rolling off her even from across the courtyard, kept me rooted to the spot. Then it happened. She froze, mid-step, and turned. Her head snapped toward my window, and though the storm distorted my view, I knew instantly that her eyes had locked on mine. My breath caught. I jerked back, heart pounding like a guilty child caught spying. For a moment, I hovered against the wall beside my window, debating whether to peek again. But when I finally dared to glance, her blinds were drawn shut. The room across from mine went dark. I told myself it was nothing, just a neighbor stressed about something personal. People argue, people break down, and it's none of my business. But the image of her silhouette, the way she seemed to stare straight through me, stuck in my head like a splinter I couldn't remove. The following morning, I opened my door to leave for work and nearly tripped over an envelope lying on the floor. It had no address, no name, nothing but my apartment number, scrawled in neat, deliberate handwriting. My stomach flipped as I bent down and picked it up. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "We need to talk. Tonight. 8 p.m. Don't ignore this." That was all it said. I stood there frozen in the hallway, staring at the words as though they might rearrange themselves into something more rational. Who leaves anonymous notes like this? My mind immediately jumped to the woman across the courtyard. But how would she even know who I was, let alone which apartment was mine? The logical part of me screamed to throw the note away, to go to work, to forget about it. But another part, the part that had been haunted since last night, couldn't let it go. The day dragged on endlessly. Every email at work blurred together, every meeting stretched unbearably long, because in the back of my mind, the note whispered, "Tonight. Don't ignore this." By the time I got home, the rain had stopped, but the weight in my chest only grew heavier. At 7:59, I found myself standing outside a building a block away from mine. The address scribbled on the note was old, its bricks weathered and its windows clouded with grime. The hallway smelt faintly of dust and mildew, and the buzzing light overhead flickered, like it might die any second. I climbed the stairs slowly, my footsteps echoing in the silence, until I reached the third floor. The door at the end of the hall was ajar, a thin line of golden light spilling into the darkness. My heart thudded as I approached. I hesitated, raised my hand to knock, then pushed it gently open. The room inside was not what I expected. It was warm, lived in, almost cozy despite the peeling wallpaper. A single lamp lit the space, casting a soft glow over the mismatched furniture. The air smelled faintly of coffee and lavender, oddly comforting. And then I saw her. The woman from across the courtyard sat at a small table near the window. Her hair was dark and slightly disheveled, her eyes sharp but tired, the kind of eyes that seemed older than the rest of her face. She gestured for me to sit, without saying a word. I obeyed, lowering myself into the chair opposite her, my nerves coiled tight. She slid a mug of coffee toward me. "I'm sorry for dragging you into this," she said, finally, her voice low but steady. But I didn't know who else to trust. My throat felt dry. "Who are you?" For a moment, she hesitated, as if testing how much truth she was willing to reveal. "My name is Elena, and you've seen too much already." Her words chilled me. "Too much of what?" I asked. She leaned forward, lowering her voice even further. "What I'm about to tell you, it's going to sound insane, but I need you to believe me. My life depends on it, and maybe yours does too." I wanted to laugh, to dismiss her as paranoid, but something in her tone, the deadly seriousness, kept me silent. She studied me for a moment, then continued. "They're watching me," she whispered. "Not just me, everyone. But lately it's gotten worse. I've been followed, my apartment searched, and I think—" Her eyes darted to the window, then back to me. "I think they're planning to make me disappear." I stared at her, struggling to piece together what she was saying. "Who's they?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you. But you saw me last night, didn't you? You saw how desperate I was." I nodded, slowly, remembering her frantic pacing, her hands clutching her head. "She needs my help. Just watch. If something happens to me, you'll know it wasn't an accident. You'll know I was right." I wanted to protest, to tell her I was just a neighbor, not some detective. But before I could speak, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. Elena froze, her eyes wide with terror. She motioned for me to stay silent, then tiptoed to the door and pressed her ear against it. After a long, tense moment, she exhaled shakily and returned to the table. "They're here," she whispered. "They know I'm not alone." My pulse spiked, panic clawing at my chest. I stood, ready to leave, but Elena grabbed my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. "Not yet," she said. "If you leave now, they'll follow you. Just stay, please." I swallowed hard, nodding despite every instinct screaming at me to run. We sat in silence, the room heavy with fear, listening to the creak of footsteps in the hallway. Whoever it was, they lingered outside the door, then slowly moved on. When the sound finally faded, Elena let go of my wrist, her hand trembling. "Do you believe me now?" she asked. I didn't know what to believe, but I knew one thing for certain. I was already too deep to walk away. I didn't sleep that night. Even after I left Elena's apartment and returned to my own, the echoes of her words clung to me. "They're watching me. They're planning to make me disappear." I paced my living room until dawn, convincing myself that I'd simply gotten tangled in the paranoia of a stranger. And yet, every creak of the floorboards, every shadow stretching across my blinds, made me feel like someone was out there, just beyond my vision, waiting. The following day was unbearable. My coworkers noticed the dark circles under my eyes and asked if I was sick. I brushed them off, though I could barely concentrate. The world around me felt hazy, like I was wading through fog. I told myself I wouldn't see Elena again, that whatever she was going through was none of my business. But when night fell, I found myself standing by my window, staring at hers. Her blinds remained drawn. No flickering light, no silhouette pacing back and forth, just silence. By the third night, worry gnawed at me. Curiosity had transformed into dread. I told myself I wasn't going to her apartment, that it was foolish to get involved, but my legs moved on their own. The walk to her building felt longer this time, each step echoing my hesitation. When I reached her door, I hesitated before knocking. The hallway was silent except for the faint hum of a buzzing light overhead. I raised my hand and tapped gently. No answer. I tried again, louder this time. Still nothing. Finally, I pushed the door open. The room looked wrong. The cozy warmth I'd seen just nights ago had vanished. The lamp was shattered on the floor, shards of glass glittering like ice. The furniture was overturned, paper scattered everywhere. My heart thudded in my chest as I stepped inside. "Elena?" I whispered. No response. I picked my way carefully through the mess, scanning for any sign of her. On the table lay another note, crumpled and half-soaked from what looked like coffee. My hand shook as I smoothed it out. "Don't trust them. If I'm gone, it means they found me. Don't let them find you too." The words blurred before my eyes. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over an overturned chair. What the hell had I gotten myself into? A sudden noise made me freeze. Footsteps in the hall. Slow, deliberate, growing closer. My blood ran cold. I didn't know who it was, but instinct screamed that I couldn't be found here. I darted to the back of the apartment, slipping into a narrow storage closet just as the door creaked open. From the darkness, I held my breath, straining to listen. Two voices, muffled but unmistakably male. "She's not here," one said. "Search anyway," the other replied. The sound of drawers opening, furniture being shoved aside, paper shuffled. My pulse pounded so loudly I was afraid they'd hear it. I pressed myself deeper into the closet, trying to make myself invisible. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, the first voice spoke again. "She can't have gone far. The boss won't be happy." Their footsteps retreated, the door shutting softly behind them. I remained frozen, unable to move, until silence reclaimed the apartment. When I finally emerged, my body trembled so violently I could barely stand. Elena was gone. Taken? On the run? I didn't know. All I had was her note and the gnawing certainty that I was now part of something I didn't understand. I left quickly, slipping down the stairs and back into the night, my senses on high alert. Every shadow seemed suspicious, every passerby a potential threat. Back in my apartment, I locked the door, then locked it again. I shoved a chair beneath the handle, feeling ridiculous but desperate. Sleep didn't come. Every creak of the building made me jolt awake, convinced someone was at my door. By morning, exhaustion won. I must have dozed off at some point because a sharp knock jolted me upright. My heart leapt into my throat. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Slowly, I approached the door. Another knock, louder this time. "Who is it?" I called, my voice cracking. "Delivery," a muffled voice replied. I hadn't ordered anything. My gut twisted with suspicion. I pressed my eye to the peephole. A man in a brown jacket stood outside, holding a plain cardboard box. His face was unfamiliar, his expression unreadable. "Wrong address," I said firmly. The man hesitated, then set the box down and walked away without another word. I waited several minutes before daring to open the door. The box sat innocently on the floor, unmarked, unassuming. I picked it up cautiously and carried it inside, my hands clammy. When I opened it, I froze. Inside was a small black phone, old-fashioned, burner style. On top of it lay a single slip of paper. "She's alive. If you want to help, answer when it rings." I dropped the paper as though it had burned me. My mind spun. Who had left this? How did they know where I lived? The phone sat silent in its box, ominous and patient. I wanted to throw it away, to pretend none of this was happening, but I couldn't. Elena might still be alive, and if she was, maybe I was her only chance. Hours passed. I paced, glancing at the phone every few minutes, dreading and anticipating its inevitable call. When it finally rang, the sound was shrill, startling me so badly I nearly dropped it. My hand shook as I answered. "Hello?" "Don't speak," a voice commanded. It was male, distorted, mechanical. "Just listen. If you want to see her again, you'll do exactly as I say." My throat tightened. "Who are you?" The voice ignored my question. "Tomorrow, 9 p.m., go to the corner of 5th and Alder. Alone. Bring the phone. Do not call the police. Do not tell anyone. If you do, she dies." The line went dead. I stood in silence, the phone cold against my ear, my heart hammering so violently it hurt. The next day passed in a blur of dread. I sat at my desk at work pretending to read emails, but my mind replayed the distorted voice on the phone over and over. Tomorrow, 9 p.m., bring the phone, don't tell anyone. Every syllable carried the weight of a threat, and every hour brought me closer to that corner on 5th and Alder. I thought about ignoring it, about throwing the phone into the river and walking away from the madness, but Elena's face haunted me. Those tired, pleading eyes, the desperation in her voice when she said, "If something happens to me, you'll know it wasn't an accident." If she was still alive, abandoning her wasn't an option. By evening, paranoia had fully consumed me. I jumped at every sound in my apartment. I checked the locks on my door 3 times, then a 4th, then wedged the chair back under the handle. I rehearsed excuses I could tell coworkers if I didn't make it back tomorrow. None of them made sense. When the clock struck 8:45 the following night, I was already standing on the corner of 5th and Alder. The street was unusually quiet, the kind of silence that felt staged. My palms were sweaty as I gripped the burner phone. At exactly 9 p.m., it rang. "Walk east," the same distorted voice instructed. I obeyed, my legs stiff, moving like they belonged to someone else. "Turn left at the alley." The alley was narrow and dark, reeking of damp trash. My stomach clenched as I stepped inside. Halfway down, a black van sat idling, its headlights off. The side door slid open with a metallic scrape. "Get in," the voice said. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet betrayed me, carrying me toward the van. Inside, 2 men in dark clothing sat silently, their faces obscured by masks. One of them motioned for me to sit. The door slammed shut and the van lurched forward. No one spoke. The only sounds were the rumble of the engine and the pounding of my own heart. I clutched the phone in my lap, wondering if this was the last night of my life. After what felt like an eternity, the van stopped. The masked men blindfolded me, their hands rough but efficient. I wanted to fight, to scream, but I forced myself still. If Elena was alive, this was my only chance to find her. I was led into a building, my shoes scraping against concrete floors. The air smelled of oil and metal, industrial and cold. After a series of turns, they shoved me in a chair and pulled off the blindfold. The room was dim, lit by a single overhead bulb that swung slightly, casting shifting shadows across the walls. And then I saw her. Elena sat across from me, her wrists bound, her face pale but defiant. Relief and terror crashed over me in equal measure. She was alive, but she was also a prisoner. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. The distorted voice returned, this time from a speaker mounted in the corner. "You've proven yourself useful. You care about her. That makes you valuable." "Valuable?" I repeated, my throat dry. "What do you want from me?" The voice chuckled, low and mechanical. "Loyalty, obedience. You'll do what we say when we say it, or she dies." I looked at Elena. Her eyes pleaded with me silently. "Don't give in. Don't trust them." But what choice did I have? "What do you want me to do?" I asked. The speaker crackled. "For now, nothing. You'll wait. When we need you, we'll call. Consider this a test of faith." The men grabbed me, blindfolded me again, and dragged me back to the van. I tried to memorize the turns, the sounds, anything that might give me a clue where I was, but it was useless. The city blurred into a maze of meaningless directions. When they finally dumped me back at the corner of 5th and Alder, I tore off the blindfold and spun around. The van was already gone, swallowed by the night. I stumbled home, my body shaking, my mind screaming. Elena was alive, but she was trapped in the hands of something far bigger and darker than I had imagined. And now, I was in their grip too. Back in my apartment, I collapsed onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. I wanted to call the police, to report everything, but I knew what Elena had said. Don't trust them. And deep down, I believed her. Whoever they weren't afraid of the law. Maybe they were the law. The burner phone buzzed, startling me. A new message flashed across the screen. "You did well. Wait for instructions." I threw the phone onto the table like it was poisonous, but its glow continued to pulse in the darkness, a constant reminder that I was no longer free. For days, nothing happened. I went to work, pretended everything was normal, but inside I was unraveling. Every time the phone buzzed with a text or rang unexpectedly, my heart jumped into my throat. Finally, on the fourth night, the call came. Tomorrow, you'll collect a package. Details to follow. Fail us, and she dies. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my pulse racing. A package. What could they possibly want with me? The next evening, I received a text with an address, a small cafe downtown. The instructions were simple. Pick up the envelope under table 6. Do not open it. Deliver it to the corner of 12th and Main, midnight. My hands trembled as I read the message. I felt like I was sinking into quicksand, each task pulling me deeper into a world I couldn't escape. But I couldn't risk Elena's life. So at midnight, I found myself at the cafe, sliding into table 6. Sure enough, an envelope sat taped beneath it. I peeled it free, my heart hammering, and slipped it into my jacket. The delivery point was another alley, this one darker, emptier than the last. I waited, clutching the envelope, until a man in a hooded jacket approached. He didn't speak, didn't even look at me. He simply took the envelope, nodded once, and disappeared into the night. That was it. No explanation, no instructions. I returned home, shaken, my mind racing with possibilities. What was in the envelope? Money? Information? Something worse? The next morning, the phone buzzed again. Good, you've passed the first test. There will be more. I collapsed onto my bed, staring at the ceiling, knowing I was caught in something far beyond me. And yet, in the depths of my fear, one thought burned brighter than the rest. I had to save Elena, no matter what. The following weeks blurred together in a haze of dread and obedience. Every few nights, the phone would buzz with a new task. Sometimes it was simple. Deliver an envelope, pick up a bag, leave it at a designated spot. Other times it was stranger. Follow a man for 3 blocks and report which building he entered. Take photos of a car's license plate. Memorize a sequence of numbers posted on a billboard. Each time, I told myself I wouldn't do it, that I would resist, that I'd find a way to outsmart them. But then I'd see Elena's face in my mind, bound to that chair, her eyes pleading. And every time, I obeyed. The more tasks I completed, the more I noticed the patterns. The men I was following weren't random. The places I was delivering to weren't insignificant. Whatever this was, it was organized, methodical, and terrifyingly precise. One night, after dropping off another envelope in yet another alley, I decided to test the boundaries. Instead of going straight home, I circled back, keeping my distance, trying to catch a glimpse of who collected it. From the shadows, I saw him. A man in a tailored suit, sharp and polished, so out of place in the grimy alley that he seemed unreal. He bent down, picked up the envelope, and walked away calmly, like he had all the power in the world. I wanted to follow him, but fear pinned me in place. Still, the image burned into my mind. Whoever these people were, they weren't street thugs. They had money, influence, control. When I returned home, the phone was waiting for me, buzzing with a new message. You're being watched. Don't test us again. My stomach dropped. Had they seen me? Were there cameras, lookouts? Or was this just their way of keeping me in line? Either way, I got the message. But the seed of rebellion had been planted. Days later, I received my most disturbing task yet. The message read, Apartment 304, building on 9th Street, enter after midnight. Collect the black case under the bed. Do not look inside. I stared at the screen, my blood waiting cold. This wasn't a delivery in a public place. This was a break-in. I tried to tell myself it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe the apartment belonged to them. Maybe I wasn't really committing a crime. But deep down, I knew I was being used. Still, fear won again. At 12:30 a.m., I found myself picking the lock of apartment 304 with tools they had helpfully provided in the last package. My hands shook as I slipped inside, every nerve screaming that I was making a mistake. The apartment was dark, silent, and smelled faintly of cigarettes. I crept to the bedroom, my flashlight trembling in my grip, and crouched to look under the bed. There it was, a small black case. I reached for it, but then curiosity got the better of me. I hesitated, glancing toward the door, then back at the case. Do not look inside. The words echoed in my head, which meant, of course, that I had to. My fingers fumbled with the latches. The lid clicked open. Inside, nestled in foam padding, was a gun. Sleek, black, polished. Beside it lay a stack of passports, each with a different name, but the same face. Elena's face. My breath caught. I slammed the case shut, my heart pounding. What did this mean? Was she working for them? Running from them? Both. I shoved the case into my bag and fled, every shadow in the hallway whispering of danger. When I delivered it to the designated spot, I half expected someone to confront me about opening it. But no one did. The next morning, a new message appeared. Good work. I wanted to throw the phone out the window, to scream into the void, but I couldn't, not while Elena's life hung in the balance. But the discovery gnawed at me. Those passports, those identities. Who was she really? The frightened neighbor I thought I knew, or someone far more dangerous? The questions multiplied, but answers never came. Until one night, weeks later, when everything changed. I was walking home from yet another task, exhausted and hollow, when a hand grabbed my arm and yanked me into an alley. I spun, ready to fight, but froze when I saw her. Elena. She looked different, harder, sharper. Her hair was tied back, her eyes fierce and unyielding. Gone was the frightened woman from across the courtyard. This was someone else entirely. Don't speak, she hissed, her grip iron-strong on my arm. They're listening, just nod if you understand. I nodded, my heart racing. I don't have much time, she continued, her voice low and urgent. I need you to trust me. Everything they've told you, everything you think you know, it's a lie. My mouth opened, but she squeezed my arm tighter. Don't, just listen. She glanced around the alley, scanning the shadows. They're using you because you're invisible, ordinary, forgettable, the perfect pawn. But you're in danger, more danger than you realize. She slipped something into my hand, a flash drive, small and cold. Keep this safe. Don't let them find it. And whatever you do, don't look at what's on it. Not yet, not until I tell you. My pulse thundered, questions clawed at my throat, but her eyes silenced me. Trust me, she whispered. Then she was gone, vanishing into the night like smoke. I stood frozen, the flash drive burning in my palm. My life had already been swallowed by their web of shadows and secrets, but now, for the first time, I had something they didn't know about. Something that could change everything. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed with the flash drive clutched in my hand, staring at it as if it might come alive. Every few minutes, I'd convince myself to plug it into my laptop, to finally get answers. But Elena's words replayed in my mind, sharp and unrelenting. Don't. Not yet. Not until I tell you. By sunrise, I felt hollow. My phone buzzed again, summoning me to another task. I ignored it for the first time. The vibration rattled across my table, a sound that felt louder than a gunshot in the silence of my apartment. My chest tightened, as if invisible hands were strangling me. Minutes later, another buzz, then another, then a call. When I didn't answer, the landline rang. I hadn't even known it worked. With trembling fingers, I picked it up. Do you think you can ignore us? The voice on the other end was calm, measured, terrifying. Your obedience has kept your neighbor alive. Do you want to test how long that lasts? My throat went dry. I wanted to shout, to beg, to curse them. Instead, all I managed was, I'll do it. The voice chuckled. That's better. The line went dead. I sat there shaking, realizing I was deeper than ever before. They owned me, and yet I couldn't stop thinking about the flash drive hidden under a loose floorboard beneath my bed. The next task was different. Not an envelope, not surveillance. It was a meeting. 8 p.m., Riverside Warehouse, back entrance, knocked 3 times. My body screamed against going, but I couldn't refuse. Not now. When I arrived, the warehouse loomed like a sleeping beast against the night sky. Rusted metal doors, broken windows, shadows thick as tar. I knocked 3 times, and the door creaked open. A man in a black coat beckoned me inside. His face was partially hidden, but his eyes gleamed with intelligence. Come.
I followed him down a narrow corridor into a large open space, lit by a single dangling bulb. A group of men stood in a circle, their voices low. On a table in the center lay a map, photos, and stacks of cash. They all turned when I entered. "Is this him?" one asked, his tone skeptical. "Yes," the man in the coat replied. "Our runner." Runner. The word made me flinch. One of the men, a tall figure with a scar down his cheek, stepped closer. "You've done well. Reliable. Quiet. That's rare." I didn't know what to say. My voice betrayed me. "I just want her safe." The scarred man smiled thinly. "And she will be, as long as you keep doing what we ask." They handed me a new assignment. Something bigger, riskier. A bag. Locked, heavy. I was to carry it across the city, leave it in a parked car, and walk away. I didn't ask what was inside. I didn't want to know. But as I carried it through the empty streets, every step felt like a countdown. The weight of the bag wasn't just physical. It was moral, crushing me under its mystery. Halfway there, I couldn't take it anymore. I ducked into an alley, unzipped the bag just an inch, enough to peek inside. Stacks of money, neatly wrapped, bound with tape, more than I'd ever seen in my life. My breath caught. I zipped it shut quickly and staggered back into the street. When I delivered it, no one was there to greet me. Just the car, its trunk unlocked. I placed the bag inside and closed it, my hands trembling. The next morning, another message awaited me. "You disobeyed again." I froze. They had known. Of course they had. "You're alive only because we allow it. Remember that." I thought I'd reached the peak of fear, but I was wrong. Now I lived with the constant dread of invisible eyes. Every mirror felt like a camera, every shadow a spy. And through it all, the flash drive haunted me. 2 weeks passed before I saw Elena again. This time, she appeared in my apartment. I woke to find her standing in the corner of my room, her face pale in the moonlight. "Jesus," I gasped, nearly falling out of bed. "Quiet," she hissed. "We don't have long." She stepped closer, her eyes softer this time, though no less intense. "You kept it?" "The drive?" I whispered. "Yes." Her shoulders eased. "Good. That means we still have a chance." "A chance for what? Elena, what is this? Who are they? Who are you?" Her lips parted as if she wanted to tell me everything, but then she shook her head. "Not yet. If you knew, you'd already be dead." "That's not good enough," I snapped, my voice trembling with anger. "I've risked everything, my life, my sanity." She pressed a finger to my lips. "And you'll risk more, because you're the only one I can trust." I pulled back, shaking my head. "You're asking me to keep walking blind." Her eyes locked on mine. Better blind than dead. For a moment, silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small slip of paper. "Tomorrow, 11 p.m., the train station. East platform. Bring the drive. Don't let anyone follow you." Before I could respond, she was gone, disappearing out the window like a ghost. I sat there staring at the slip of paper, my pulse hammering in my ears. Tomorrow, everything would change. Or end. By the time the next night came, paranoia had hollowed me out. I left my apartment hours early, circling the city, watching my own shadow like it was an enemy. Every face seemed suspicious, every step behind me a trap. When I finally reached the station, the east platform was nearly deserted. The last train of the night screeched in, empty cars rattling, then pulled away, leaving silence in its wake. And then I saw her. Elena stood at the far end, her coat pulled tight, her hair hidden beneath a scarf. She looked like someone else, yet unmistakably her. I approached, clutching the flash drive in my pocket like a talisman. "Did you bring it?" she asked softly. I nodded, handing it over. She closed her hand around it, her eyes glistening. "Good. You've done more than I ever hoped." "What's on it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She hesitated, as if weighing whether to finally trust me. Then she leaned in. "Names, accounts, proof, enough to burn them down." My chest tightened. "Then why not just go to the police?" Her laugh was bitter. "The police? Half of them are on the payroll. This goes higher than you can imagine." I wanted to press her, to demand answers, but before I could, a noise echoed across the platform. Footsteps. Heavy.
Elena's head snapped toward the sound. Her eyes widened. Run! Figures emerged from the shadows, men in dark coats, their faces obscured, their movements precise. Run! She shouted again, grabbing my hand. We bolted down the platform, the sound of pursuit growing louder behind us. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but adrenaline carried me. We burst through a side exit, stumbling into the night air, racing through the empty streets. Behind us, the men followed, their footsteps relentless. This way! Elena yanked me into an alley, weaving through the labyrinth of the city. But no matter how many turns we took, the footsteps followed, always behind us, always closing in. At last, cornered in a dead-end alley, we spun to face them. Elena stepped forward, her body tense, her voice sharp as a blade. You'll have to kill me before you get it. The men halted, their leader stepping into the light. It was him, the scarred man. His smile was cold. That can be arranged. The alley seemed to shrink around us, its brick walls pressing closer with every breath. The scarred man's smile widened as he stepped forward, the others fanning out behind him like shadows unbound. Elena tightened her grip on my hand, her nails digging into my skin, a silent message. Don't break. You've been a nuisance, the scarred man said, his voice calm, almost bored. But useful, for a while. He tilted his head, studying us like insects trapped under glass. The drive, Elena. Give it here, and maybe I'll let you both walk out of this alive. Elena stood straighter, her eyes blazing. You know that's not happening. The man chuckled. I admire your stubbornness, truly, but it's wasted. He flicked his fingers and two men stepped forward. Elena pushed me back, her stance shifting. I didn't even have time to ask what she was doing before she lashed out, kicking the first man in the knee. He crumpled with a grunt. Her elbow smashed into the second's jaw, sending him staggering. I froze. I had never seen her like this. Quick, brutal, efficient. She wasn't just surviving, she was trained. Move, she barked, shoving me toward a side door at the end of the alley. We ran, our footsteps echoing, my mind reeling from what I had just witnessed. Behind us, shouts rose. The chase was on again. We burst into a dimly lit storage corridor. Crates stacked high, the smell of mildew thick in the air. Elena slammed the door shut behind us and dragged a crate in front of it. Help me, she hissed, pulling at another crate. Together, we piled them against the door, the wood groaning under the weight. For a moment, silence. Then the pounding began. They'll break through, I panted. I know. Her eyes darted around the room. She spotted a staircase in the corner and grabbed my arm. Upstairs, now. We scrambled up 2 steps at a time until we reached the catwalk overlooking the warehouse floor. Elena crouched low, pulling me down with her. Stay quiet. The door below finally gave way, crashing inward. The men swarmed in, flashlights sweeping across the space. They're here, one shouted. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would give us away. Elena pressed her finger to her lips, eyes sharp. The scarred man entered last, his gaze scanning methodically. He moved with the confidence of a predator who knew his prey couldn't escape. Search everywhere, he ordered. They can't have gone far. The men scattered, their beams slicing through the dark. One came dangerously close, his light passing just beneath the catwalk where we crouched. I held my breath, praying he wouldn't look up. Minutes crawled by like hours. Then, finally, a shout from the far end of the warehouse, "Tracks! Over here!" The men rushed that way, their footsteps fading. Elena grabbed my hand and pulled me toward a narrow service door. We slipped through, emerging into the cool night air. For the first time in what felt like hours, I exhaled. Elena leaned against the wall, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Sweat glistened on her brow, but her eyes were steady, focused. You, I whispered, struggling to form the words, you fought like you've done this before. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared at me, weighing something invisible between us. Finally, she said, I told you there are things you don't know, things you shouldn't know. That's not enough, I snapped, my fear twisted into anger, raw and uncontrollable. I've risked everything, Elena, my life, my sanity. You owe me the truth. Her face softened, and for a moment I thought she might finally open up. But then her eyes hardened again, shutters slamming closed. Not yet. If I tell you now, you'll be marked for death in ways you can't even imagine.
I already am, I shot back. You dragged me into this whether you wanted to or not. If I'm going to die, I deserve to know why. The silence between us stretched until I thought it would break me. Finally, she sighed, her shoulders sagging. Tomorrow, she said quietly. Meet me tomorrow night. I'll explain everything. But for now, we have to disappear. Disappear? She nodded. If they catch us again tonight, it's over. We need a safe place, somewhere they won't think to look. I thought of my apartment, then immediately discarded the idea. They had eyes everywhere. There's an old motel on the edge of town, abandoned mostly. We can hide there until morning. I wanted to argue, but exhaustion smothered me, so I just nodded. We walked for hours, sticking to shadows, avoiding main roads. Every sound made me flinch. Every passing car felt like doom approaching. By the time we reached the motel, my body ached with fatigue. The place was a ruin. Shattered windows, peeling paint, weeds reclaiming the parking lot. But it was shelter. Elena led me inside, finding a room with a door that's still locked. We collapsed onto opposite sides of the bed, too tired to speak. As sleep tugged at me, one thought looped in my mind. Tomorrow, I would finally know. But when morning came, Elena was gone. I shot up, panic slicing through the fog of sleep. The room was empty, the blanket neatly folded on her side of the bed. On the nightstand lay a note, scrawled hastily, "Trust no one, not even me. Tonight, 11 p.m., the pier." My stomach dropped. Not even me. I stared at the words until they blurred, questions spiraling faster than I could catch. Had I ever truly known who Elena was? And worse, had I just made myself a pawn in a game I couldn't begin to understand? The note burned in my hand as if the ink itself were fire. Trust no one, not even me. The words looped endlessly in my head, a mantra of paranoia I couldn't escape. I staggered out of the motel, the early morning sun casting long shadows that felt hostile, unfamiliar. Every passerby was a suspect. Every glance lingered too long. I clutched the straps of my jacket tight, as though it could shield me from eyes I couldn't see. All day, I wandered the city like a ghost. I avoided my apartment, avoided anywhere I'd been before. I ate nothing, drank little, surviving on nerves and fear. The pier. 11 p.m. That was the only thought that kept me tethered. But the more I replayed Elena's note, the more doubt gnawed at me. If I couldn't trust her, who could I trust? And if I couldn't even trust her, then why was I still following her instructions? By the time night fell, exhaustion had hollowed me out. I moved like an automaton toward the waterfront, the smell of salt and diesel thick in the air. The pier stretched into darkness, waves slapping against the rotting wood. She was there. Elena stood at the end, her figure silhouetted against the dim glow of the harbor lights. She didn't move as I approached, didn't even turn. "Elena," I called softly. At last, she faced me. Her expression was unreadable, carved from stone. "You came?" she said. "Of course I came. You told me to." Her eyes narrowed. "That's not the only reason." I hesitated. I needed answers. She nodded slowly, as if I had passed some unspoken test. "Then it's time." She gestured to a bench nearby. We sat, the wood damp beneath us, the sea breeze cutting cold through my jacket. "There are things you've seen, things you weren't meant to see. Those men, the scarred one, the others, they're not just criminals. They're part of something bigger, a syndicate that threads through the city like veins. Politics, police, banks, everything." I swallowed hard. "And you? Where do you fit in?" Her jaw tightened. "I used to work for them." The words hit me like a blow. "You what?" Her gaze dropped to the water. "I wasn't always who you think I am. I ran errands, like you, delivered messages, carried bags. At first it was survival. Then it was obligation, debt. You don't say no to them and live. But I saw too much, learned too much, and eventually I realized I was helping monsters stay in power." "So you left?" "I tried," she said bitterly. "No one leaves, not really. But I stole something when I ran. That drive, proof of their operations, enough to bring them down if it reaches the right hands." My pulse quickened. "Then give it to the FBI, the press, anyone."
Her laugh was hollow. You think I haven't tried? Every door I've knocked on was already theirs. Every so-called ally was another set of chains. The only way is to find someone outside their web, someone desperate enough to have nothing left to lose. Me, I whispered. She looked at me, her eyes sharp, almost pained. Yes, you. The silence stretched, broken only by the lapping of waves. Elena, why drag me into this? Why not disappear with the drive yourself? Because they'd find me. But you were invisible, ordinary, a neighbor no one cared about. You were perfect. Her words cut deep. I wasn't chosen for my strength or courage or anything noble. I was chosen because I was nothing. I stood up, anger boiling through my fear. So I'm just your pawn? Another runner for them, only this time for you? She rose too, her face twisting. It's not like that. It is. You've risked my life over and over, and now you want me to keep doing it? Why should I? Her voice cracked, raw with something I couldn't name. Because you're the only one I can trust. I stared at her, my chest heaving. The note's words stabbed at me again. Not even me. Then why write it? I demanded. Why tell me not to trust you? Her lips trembled. Because I'm not sure if I trust myself anymore. The confession hit me harder than any revelation about syndicates or drives. There was a fragility in her voice I hadn't heard before. Before I could respond, a sharp crack echoed through the night, a gunshot. Splinters burst from the pier post beside Elena's head. Down, she screamed, tackling me to the ground. Another shot rang out, shattering the bench where we had sat moments earlier. Panic surged. I rolled, dragging Elena behind a stack of crates. My heart pounded so violently it drowned out the crash of waves. They found us, she hissed. No kidding, I snapped, my voice shaking. We crouched low, shadows dancing as footsteps approached. More than one. They're flanking. Elena whispered. Her eyes darted around, calculating. Then she looked at me, fierce and unyielding. If we split, one of us might make it. If we stay together, we die. No! The word burst out of me, stronger than I expected. I'm not leaving you. Her lips parted in surprise, but there was no time for more. The footsteps grew louder, closing in. Fine, she muttered, pulling a small pistol from inside her coat. I stared at it, stunned. You've been carrying that the whole time? Do you really think I'd survive this long without it? She pressed it into my hand. Take it. I've never... She cut me off. Point and pull. It's easier than you think. My fingers closed around the cold metal, heavy with consequence. Shadows loomed at the edge of the pier. The scarred man's voice carried over the wind, smooth and mocking. You can't hide forever, Elena. Hand it over, and maybe I'll make it quick. Elena squeezed my arm, her eyes locking onto mine. No matter what happens, don't let them take the drive. I nodded, though terror clawed at my throat. The footsteps came closer, closer, and then chaos erupted. The first shot split the night like lightning, followed by another, and then the pier was alive with chaos. Bullets sparked against metal crates, wood splintered, waves thrashed angrily beneath us. My ears rang with each crack, my lungs burned with each panicked breath. Elena pressed her back against the crate beside me, her own pistol drawn. She returned fire, quick bursts that echoed across the pier. I clutched the weapon she had handed me, my hands slick with sweat, my fingers trembling. I had never held a gun before, let alone pointed one at another human being. Focus, she hissed, dragging my arm upward. If they get close, aim center mass. Don't hesitate. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to nod. The scarred man's voice rang out from the shadows. You're cornered, Elena. You and your little pet rat. Hand over the drive and maybe I'll consider letting him crawl away alive. Elena's eyes blazed, her jaw tight. She shouted back, You'll get nothing from me. Another volley of gunfire rained down, forcing us lower. The wood beneath us groaned ominously, and I realized the pier itself might not withstand this kind of assault for long. Elena, I whispered urgently, we can't hold them off forever. Her gaze darted toward the far end of the pier, where a small motorboat bobbed against the waves. Then we don't. We run.
Before I could protest, she yanked me to my feet and we sprinted across the planks, gunfire chasing us like a storm. I fired blindly behind us, the recoil jarring through my arms, my shots wild but enough to make the men duck for cover. The boat was within reach when Elena stumbled, a cry ripping from her throat. She collapsed to one knee, clutching her side. Elena! I dropped beside her, panic surging. Blood seeped through her fingers, dark and terrible. I'm fine, she gasped, her face pale, her breath ragged. Keep moving. No, you're not fine, I shouted desperation, cracking my voice. You're shot. The scarred man's voice carried over the wind, closer now. She's finished. Leave her, boy. Save yourself. Rage flared through my fear. I fired in his direction, forcing him to duck, then hauled Elena up with every ounce of strength I had. We're going together, I growled. Somehow we stumbled the last few steps to the boat. I shoved her in, scrambled after, and fumbled with the starter. The engine sputtered once, twice, then roared into life. Bullets whipped past as I slammed the throttle, the boat lurching forward into the dark water. Spray hit my face, salt stinging my eyes, but I didn't dare slow down. Elena slumped against the side, her breath shallow. Keep going, she whispered. I pressed one hand to her wound, trying to stem the bleeding, the other gripping the wheel. Stay with me. You're not dying. Do you hear me? Her hand found mine, weak but insistent. Her eyes met mine, filled with something raw and unspoken. If I don't make it, promise me that drive. You will make it, I snapped, tears burning my eyes. Don't talk like that. But deep down, I wasn't sure if I believed my own words. We sped across the dark water, the city lights shrinking behind us. Only when the gunfire faded entirely did I finally slow, steering toward a cluster of abandoned docks on the outskirts of town. I pulled the boat in, tied it shakily, and half carried Elena onto the dock. She was cold, trembling, her skin clammy. We need a hospital, I muttered, panic clawing at me. No hospitals, she croaked. They'll find us there, always watching. Then what? My voice cracked, helpless. Her eyes fluttered, but she forced them open. There's a safe house, not far. I'll show you. Guided by her weak directions, I carried her through deserted streets until we reached a run-down townhouse with boarded windows. She gave me a key. Where she had kept it, I didn't know, and I unlocked the door. Inside, it was dusty, but stocked. Medical supplies, food, water, a hideout prepared long ago. I laid her on a couch and tore open a first aid kit, my hands shaking as I tried to clean and bandage the wound. She winced, but didn't cry out, her strength astonishing even in her weakness. When it was done, I sat beside her, my body trembling with exhaustion. You can't keep running like this, I whispered. Neither of us can. Her eyes opened slowly, glistening with pain, but also determination. Then we stop running. We finish it. I stared at her, stunned. Finish what? How? She reached into her coat with trembling fingers and pulled out the flash drive. She pressed it into my palm, her grip surprisingly strong. This is everything. Their accounts, their names, their deals, enough to burn them to ash. But it can't be me. I'm compromised. It has to be you. My chest tightened. Me? Elena, I don't know how. You'll figure it out. Because you have no choice. Because if you don't, everything we've gone through, everything I've lost will mean nothing. Tears welled in my eyes. I clutched the drive like it was life itself. I'll do it, I swear. She smiled faintly, her eyelids drooping. I knew you could trust me. Her head lolled to the side, unconscious. I sat there in the dark, the weight of the flash drive pressing into my hand, the enormity of what lay ahead crushing down on me. Somewhere out there, the scarred man was hunting, the syndicate still ruled, and I was nothing more than an ordinary man caught in their storm. But now I had the key, and I had to decide how much I was willing to risk to use it. The night bled into morning with no rest. I sat in the safe house, Elena's shallow breaths the only sound besides the ticking of a clock that hadn't told the right time in years. The flash drive lay on the table in front of me, small, unassuming, yet heavy with promise and peril. I stared at it for hours, my mind spiraling. I wasn't a spy. I wasn't a soldier. I was just a man who once lived in anonymity, whose biggest worry had been an overdue rent notice or whether the grocery store had run out of decent coffee. Yet here I was,
holding evidence that could topple men who thought themselves untouchable. As dawn painted the horizon gray, I made a decision. I wasn't going to run anymore. I wasn't going to let Elena's sacrifices and my own fear go to waste. When she stirred hours later, her face pale and drawn, I was already dressed, my jacket zipped, my resolve hardened. "Where are you going?" she rasped, trying to sit up. I placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You need to rest. I need to end this." Her eyes flashed with panic. "No, you don't understand what you're walking into. They'll kill you before you even plug it in." I held up the flash drive, gripping it tight. "Then I'll have to be smarter than them." For a moment, she searched my face, perhaps looking for hesitation, perhaps hoping to see something of the man she'd pulled into this nightmare. Whatever she found, it seemed to ease her. She nodded, her lips trembling. "Then don't trust anyone, not the police, not the press. Go only where you know the truth will burn the brightest." I left before either of us could say goodbye. The city looked different now. Every shadow seemed to conceal eyes. Every alley whispered threats. But I walked with purpose, heart hammering, fear welded to determination. I knew one place where the drive might have a chance. An independent journalist I'd once followed online. He was relentless, hated corruption, and had exposed scandals that had rattled city officials to their core. If anyone could bring the syndicate to its knees, it was him. Finding him wasn't easy. His office had moved 3 times in the past year due to threats, but eventually, after hours of searching, I tracked him to a dim, cluttered apartment filled with stacks of papers and the glow of multiple monitors. He looked up as I entered, suspicion etched on his face. "Who the hell are you?" "My name doesn't matter, but this does." I pulled the drive from my pocket. "And why should I believe you aren't here to set me up?" I took a deep breath. "Because people have already died for this, and if you don't do something with it, more well." He studied me for a long time, then gestured to a chair. "Sit." As he plugged the drive into his computer, my palms sweated. I half expected the device to self-destruct, to erase itself, to be nothing more than another cruel trick. But then the screen filled with folders, ledgers, encrypted messages, videos. A sprawling empire of crime laid bare. The journalist's eyes widened. This is dynamite." "Will you publish it?" I asked, my voice cracking. He turned to me, his expression both grim and resolute. "If I do, there's no going back. They'll come after me. They'll come after you. Hell, they'll come after anyone even tangentially connected to this. Are you ready for that kind of war?" I thought of Yelena bleeding on that pier, of her whispering, "Finish it." I thought of the scarred man's mocking laughter, of the terror that had ruled my life since the night I first saw her through my window, and I realized I had already been drafted into this war, whether I wanted it or not. "Yes," I said, "do it." He nodded once, then began copying files, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "It'll take time. I'll need to verify, to cross-reference, to make sure this isn't dismissed as a hoax, but when it drops, it'll be everywhere." Relief crashed over me, but it was fleeting, because at that very moment, the lights in the apartment flickered. Then the front door burst open. The scarred man stepped inside, flanked by 2 gunmen. His grin was pure malice. "I knew you couldn't resist playing hero," he sneered. My blood froze. The journalist swore under his breath, trying to yank the drive free, but the scarred man leveled his gun. "Touch it, and you're dead." Time slowed. I glanced at the drive, still connected, the files still transferring. I glanced at the window, 3 stories up, the fire escape just beyond. And then I glanced at the gun in the scarred man's hand, pointed directly at the journalist. Before I could think, before I could doubt, I lunged. The room erupted in chaos. Shots cracked, glass shattered, men shouted. Pain seared my shoulder as a bullet grazed me, but I kept moving, slamming into the scarred man with everything I had. We crashed into the desk, monitors toppling, the flash drive still clinging to its port. His hands were like iron as he fought back, his grin twisted. "You're dead, boy. You were dead the moment you opened your blinds that night." But I wasn't the same man who had once stood frozen at a window, powerless and afraid. I was different now, hardened. With a roar, I grabbed the nearest object, a shattered monitor stand, and drove it into his face. He howled, staggering back, blood streaming from his scarred skin. The journalist shouted, "The files are uploaded. It's done." Hope flared in my chest, but the scarred man, blinded by rage, lunged one last time with the knife in his hand. I met him head-on. The struggle was brutal, desperate, but in the end, the knife found its mark, not in me, but in him. His eyes went wide, shock etched across his ruined face, and then he collapsed, lifeless. The room was silent except for my ragged breathing. The gunmen, seeing their leader fall and the files already gone, fled into the night. I sank to the floor, blood dripping from my shoulder, my body trembling from exhaustion. The journalist pulled the drive free and held it up, awe in his eyes. "It's over," he whispered. "The world will see everything." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this nightmare was finally at an end. But as I stumbled back to the safe house hours later, Yelena still lying pale and fragile on the couch, I knew the truth. The war wasn't over. It had only begun. The syndicate would reel, would thrash, would burn, but they would not die quietly. And yet, as I knelt beside Yelena taking her hand, I felt a strange calm, because for the first time since that night, the power wasn't all theirs. We had struck back. And I knew no matter what came next, I would never again be just the man across the window. I was something more.